But let's starting out with our three guys that we would like to see our teams ultimately sign. And both of our teams have a handful of needs. I know particularly for the Bears going into this offseason, we need a left tackle, a left guard, a center, a right guard, a wide receiver three, a tight end two, a tight end three, a running back one, another edge rusher, another D tackle, and someone who you could properly say is your safety number three. For me, those are the areas of the Bears that I look at. Sterling, I know for the Steelers, where do you think their biggest needs
Yeah,
are?
I mean, most teams have lots of needs as we
Yes.
enter the offseason. That's very common. For me, I just sort of looked at the top three in my opinion, and that was really it's offense. It's that quarterback, who's going to be the quarterback of the Steelers next year, wide receiver, and running back. It's those three big spots that are really have gaping holes right now on this team. And so those are the focal points for myself.
Yeah, so I think we should gonna go back and forth a little bit. One, or do you want to do three by
Yeah.
three?
Yeah. So I mean, for myself, the number one need, obviously, for this Pittsburgh Steelers is quarterback.
Yeah.
Um, what I did was it's sort of a 1A, 1B for most of these positions. They need to sign somebody. And so either one of these guys for me would be a suitable addition. And one of them being obviously Justin Fields. That would be the ideal, is to re-sign Justin Fields, let him test free agency, see what else is out there, and go, yeah, we'll match that offer from that team. We'll match this offer from this team. Like whatever it is, that would be the ideal situation because he's already familiar with Arthur Smith, even if he doesn't enjoy playing for him necessarily, and who would. Um, but that would be the best case scenario. If that doesn't work out and the Vikings decide to part ways with Sam Darnold, that would be my option number two, if need be, because there's not a ton of great quarterback options out there right now. So the Steelers really need to figure this out and quickly and decide if they're going to go with either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, or if they're going to test that free agency and try to find someone. But really,
Yeah,
Justin Fields is number one. And if we have to grab Sam Darnold instead, then so be it.
yeah, I agree with you. I think Justin Fields has to be pretty much the biggest focus this offseason. As you know, I don't think Fields is gonna resign, and at this point, you're kind of looking at all the other options. Is Kirk Cousins gonna be available? And
Yep.
if he is available, do you even really want to bring him in? We know Aaron
Right.
Rodgers is going to be available, but I think most people at this point are kind of looking at this going, I would avoid rather bringing him into the organization because these last 2 years for the Jets have just been nothing but chaos and just
Yeah.
insanity. And even the last few years with the Packers, and it's just kind of getting to that point now where it's like, do you really want to bring that into the locker room? And
Right. Well, I
Russell
mean, hell,
Wilson
even the Colts ownership bought a huge freaking billboard
that
in
said we're not
Indianapolis that
signing
said
Aaron
we are not
Rodgers.
signing Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
But yeah, I mean, those are going to be options for Pittsburgh as well. Like you said, Kirk Cousins. I've heard rumors that Matt Stafford might be on the move somewhere if he decides to stick around. So, another veteran option. There were some rumors that came out straight out of Jacksonville
But
camp this week as well that the Pittsburgh Steelers have been calling
trying
about
to get
Trevor
Trevor
Lawrence.
Lawrence,
So,
yeah.
there are other options out there, but like ideally, top of the list, if you can get Justin Fields to re-sign on a 3 or 4 year deal, that should be what you do.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I do think Sam Darnold, if you can't re-sign Justin Fields, I think Darnold would probably be the top option there just because
Mhm.
obviously you saw what he was capable of doing there. But I think Darnold is a big risk. But then again, the Steelers, they don't really have any other options at this point.
No.
So I agree with you on that one. For me, the first big need, again, I talked about basically the entirety of the offensive line. And when I say left tackle, I mean we have a replacement level tackle, someone that you can have right there and go, this guy is serviceable at his position, but left guard, center, and right guard are all you need to get these done now. And we talked a little bit about Trey Smith in that game, and I think the Bears they have probably the best shot at Trey Smith. Ryan Poles was the guy that pushed heavy for him a few years ago when he was drafted. He played beside Darnold right back in college when they were both at Tennessee, so they have familiarity. Trey Smith's girlfriend is from Chicago, so that makes it a little bit easier. But the Bears just have cap space, man. And, bringing in Ben Johnson, it's going to allow them to have some of these more offensive players go like, yeah, I want to go play for that guy because I've seen what he's capable of doing and the offense that he runs. Like it's I think that's going to be a big bonus for the Bears in this scenario. And plus, they have the cap space. If he wants a $20 million a year deal, you can give him a $20 million per year deal. And he's probably the best interior offensive lineman in football right now. And if he hits the open market, the Bears, they need to sign him. They need to go after this guy. Now I know he's going to be heavily pursued by basically everybody that has enough cap space to sign him, but if you're the Bears, I think those just few small things are going to be something that is going to be enticing for Trey Smith to at least do.
Yeah, 100%. And, we talked about it all throughout the season for Chicago that the biggest thing they need to focus on this offseason is protecting Caleb Williams. Dude was running around for his life back there. And so that has to be one of the biggest focal points. Because not only will an interior lineman help protect Caleb Williams, it'll help open up holes for the run game, which means Caleb doesn't have to drop back on every pass. He can hand it off to whoever the running back is, and let them do their thing.
Yeah, and it's going to be. I think we've talked a lot about left tackle being the most important position on the offensive line, and I think nowadays, if you can just get the best offensive lineman, whether it's a right tackle, whether it's a right guard, whatever it is, you just need to get the best guys that you can build around. And Trey Smith is a guy that you can build this offensive line around. And you put Trey Smith on that offensive line. This is a guy that's won 2 Super Bowls. He's been at the pinnacle. He's gone up against the very best of the best, and he's done a really good job at it. And if you get Trey Smith there, a lot of pieces on that offensive line start to fall into place a lot more.
100%, yeah. And so going back to Pittsburgh, we talked about quarterback. Obviously, the next position of need is who is that quarterback going to throw the ball to? Because we've seen it. It's George Pickens is the number one on this team right now. We don't know if he's still going to be there next year. There's still discussions going on that maybe Pittsburgh tries to trade him before the draft for either a player swap or some draft capital or something just to get that personality out. There's been some rumors even for just a straight up trade with the 49ers for Deebo Samuel because he was wanting out. And so that, best of both worlds, new scene for both. But outside of that, they've got to sign a free agent wide receiver this year. They need to. They're going to also have to draft somebody at some point too. So really the logical thing would be to go for the wide receiver one that's available in the free agent market, and that is T. Higgins. Whether T. Higgins would be willing to play for Pittsburgh after being such a staple in Cincinnati, that's up for debate. And I think he will likely land somewhere else. This is a guy I would like Pittsburgh to try and sign. I don't think it'll happen. And so I did the same thing here where I have like a safety net guy, and that's a veteran presence in Keenan Allen. I talked about it all season long that I would love to see Keenan Allen come to Pittsburgh because he's got that veteran presence. He tends to stay healthy most of the time lately, and that would be a great addition. I know, everybody believes he's likely going back to LA to play with Justin Herbert again. That's probably where he lands, and I think so too. But those are the two guys that I would most like to see Pittsburgh make a push for and try to bring in at that wide receiver position.
Yeah, I think T. Higgins, I think if he leaves, I think he leaves out of the division, probably out of the conference in general. Keenan
I
Allen,
think so.
he's already stated that he's only going to play for Chicago, the Rams, or the Chargers.
Yeah.
And now, again, I'm not going to completely dismiss that he might change his mind again. Players, again, Pittsburgh could look at him and say, hey, you want $25 million this season to come play with us for a year? Yeah, we'll give you $25 million to come play for us for a year. I think that'd be massively overpaying, but yeah, I get it. And
Well, exactly. And I mean, when guys say stuff like that, they're, with the press in their face, a lot of them just have prepared answers, because they know what questions are coming and they're just like, I don't want to upset anybody, upset the apple cart. I'm just good. Yeah, These are the teams I'll play for. And then when offseason rolls around, other teams start calling them. They go, oh, well, I never thought about that. I
Yeah,
guess I could
this
play them.
could be a fit for a
That's
season.
the
Yeah,
sort of thing where it's like, yeah, I know he said that, but we've seen guys change their mind in the past when a certain team calls them and they go, it would be really cool to play for that coach or for that organization or
totally.
with that other player. There's all kinds of different factors that come into play at that point.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where the Steelers, they need wide receiver help. We know they're going to target one of the
Hmm.
top wide receiver free agents that ultimately hits the market. You know for a fact they're going to be calling T Higgins, they're going to be calling Chris Godwin, Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper.
Ugh.
I think Amari Cooper will probably be, if you're going to try to get one
Yep.
of those top guys, I honestly think Amari Cooper might be the top pick because he's been level-headed. He's a little bit older, but he's still been productive throughout this year. But yeah, for me, the next player is another lineman, this time on the defensive line, and Milton Williams, the defensive tackle for the Eagles. We saw him play at his very, very best this year, and he was without a doubt probably the best defensive player not named Josh Sweat on that defense for the Eagles in this Super Bowl. He was just unbelievable in this playoffs. And, he's still a younger guy. The Bears need another defensive tackle, and they do have a ton of cap space. And I think Javon Dexter is a really, really good young DT that is going to continue to grow and develop, but you need someone to give him more help because he really didn't have that. And the Bears do have Andrew Billings, and I think Andrew Billings is a phenomenal defensive tackle. It's someone that both the head coach and the defensive coordinator for the Bears particularly talked about when they were talking about this defense. And I think if you add Milton Williams into this equation, you have three guys that you can basically rotate in and out throughout different sets and different predictions that you're trying to do. I think the Bears would be really smart to try to go after this guy. Now, again, has he been the most productive defensive tackle in the NFL over his first 4 years? Not over the first 2 years, but these last couple of seasons, he's been slowly getting better and better. Now, again, he also has Jalen Carter there playing with him these last 2 seasons, which is big. Vic Fangio was huge. But it's one of those things where the Bears, they need more defensive tackle help. And I would prefer them to spend money on the defensive tackle as opposed to drafting it, because I would like to see them draft more on the offensive line side of the ball to get those cheaper guys in there as opposed to spending big, 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 big. Now, again, they did spend $20 million, which I'm predicting Trey Smith is going to sign for Trey Smith. And you're not going to be shocked to hear it when I also have another offensive lineman that they're bringing in right there. So
Hmm.
it's one of those things where I would rather Bears spend maybe a little bit more on that defensive line and focus more on the offensive efforts because their defense is still pretty good, and this just makes it even better.
Oh, exactly. And that's just it. When you have that much cap space available right now, you go out and you spend that money. You spend it on guys who are already established that can fit into your system. And the trenches are key for Chicago right now. So you don't want to necessarily be filling those spots with rookies who, may or may not pan out. You want to get a guy that you put in there and go, okay, we know what he's capable of already. We know what we're going to get out of him. We're still going to draft somebody late rounds to come in behind him, and who knows, maybe that guy does take off, and we go, okay, well, we'll trade you away in year 2 or 3 of that deal that we made with you. That would be the smartest thing for Chicago to do.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's, yeah, they this entire offseason for the Bears, I've been saying and saying all year long, if you do one thing, it's you build up both sides of the line. I've been saying it for
Mhm.
years. You build a team by building the line. You need to have a quarterback, and then you need to have lines on both sides. And once you
Yep.
have that,
I mean,
everything else just starts to trickle into place.
look at the team that won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Was
Best
one of the
offensive
best
line
O
and
lines
best D
and
line.
the best D line in the league.
Yep.
And so that's the way to do it. You start in the trenches and you work your way out from there.
Yep.
100%. And so back to Pittsburgh, now we've got that running back position as well, which is lacking. They didn't pick up Najee Harris's 5th-year option. I fully expect him to sign somewhere else. And Jalen Warren is also up for contract this year. And likely testing free agency. So really, the Pittsburgh Steelers have Cordarrelle Patterson at that running back position going into next season, which he did a great job as a running back, but he is not a number one in my opinion. And I don't see this team ultimately landing on a number one. I think they are going to continue running with that 1-2 or even a 1-2-3 with Cordarrelle Patterson. And so for me, my top is much like Justin Fields. I would love to see them bring Jaylen Warren back. He has shown that he is a great workhorse. He's a good little dude that runs hard, runs fast, and is straight up and down the field. You know, there's none of this. We got to wait 10 yards for him to hit that top speed. He is just like a bullet out of the chamber. He flies. And so that is an excellent pickup. If for some reason he decides to go elsewhere, I would not be upset to see them take an experiment on somebody like J.K. Dobbins, who is not going to be in LA next year unless they also decide to re-sign because he is hitting that free agent market too. So either one of those would be great. Jaylen Warren, much like Justin Fields, is definitely the preferred option there, but it's the type of running back that Arthur Smith is going to want. He's going to want a guy that can catch those pitches in the backfield and have great explosive speed immediately, and both of those guys have that ability.
Yeah, I think both of us knew coming into this offseason that Najee Harris is kind of gone, and Najee Harris is one of those running backs this year where you look at and go, he's probably the best free agent running back in this class, but you're not getting anything special with him. You're not getting a Josh Jacobs. You're not getting a Derrick Henry. You're sure as hell not getting a Saquon Barkley. You're just getting someone who's just a big running back who is going to get you 3-4 yards every single carry. And if that's what you're looking for from a running back, then you can certainly have it. But we're starting to see a little bit more difference, at least with Derrick Henry. He can hit that explosive speed quickly. And we've joked about Najee Harris looking like he needs a 15-yard run up before you can even have the 15-yard run up. And
Yeah.
Jaylen Warren would be a nice free signing. J.K. Dobbins would also be not a bad option. Javonte Williams, the Broncos running back for the last couple of years, I know he fits a little bit more of that more modern NFL style of running back. That could be another option for the Steelers if they can't get either of those two guys. But yeah, honestly, if the Steelers were potentially be able to sign both of those guys, where it's Jaylen Warren and J.K. Dobbins, I think they would ultimately be pretty happy. But again, this running back class for in terms of the actual free agents isn't good. The draft, however, that's a completely different story.
Well, and that's exactly it. I don't expect them to sign multiple running backs in free agency. I expect them to sign one, going with Cordarrelle Patterson, one free agent running back,
And
and
then
then they
another
will
drafted
draft one
guy.
as well.
Yeah.
And that'll be their 1-2-3 for sure.
Yeah, and for me, last guy here, again, it's not going to come as a shock. It's another offensive lineman. This time I have guard Kevin Zeitler coming over from the Lions. Whenever you see a head coach move from or from a coordinator moving to a head coach position from one team to another, you often see always one guy come from that side of the ball. When Eberflus got hired in Chicago, he brought over a edge rusher, Aquadim Muhammad, from Indianapolis. Every coach always has one of those guys, and Kevin Zeitler, he was one of the best guards this year in the NFL. He was a top 10 guy at the guard position, and yeah, he's 34 years old, but for the Bears, they need someone that's going to be able to come back onto this line and say, you know what, I know the way that Ben likes to operate. I know the terminology that he likes to use, and I can come there. I'm going to be a starter this year. Whether they draft someone in the, like, let's say they draft Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama, and this is going to come as a little bit of a shock from you. I would actually like to see Tyler Booker sit behind Zeitler to kind of learn before making him just go out there and blocking the NFL's very best. And I know Zeitler can play in the NFL. I know he can play in this offense because we've seen it the last 2.5 years. And I don't think he's going to be too terribly expensive. He's only making $8 million this year. If you want to give him a 1-year, $10 million deal, you have two guards now that are going to be the benchmark for your team. You have your left guard in Zeitler, and then you have your right guard in Trey Smith. that puts that in a very, very good situation where if that's all the offensive line moves that you make this year in free agency, and then you only draft one more offensive lineman throughout the draft process, is that ideal? No, but that is a hell of a lot better than what the Bears currently had, and that's something that you can be fairly happy with. Now, again, I would like them to do a hell of a lot more with that, and I think they will in the draft. I think when you have 3 picks in the top 45, you're going to draft at least 2 offensive linemen. I would have to hope in that time period. Now, again, things could change, but
Mhm.
yeah, for me, Zeitler would just be an excellent piece to bring in.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, even if that's all they do, at least that's still an improvement. And that is the key, is that they need to improve those trenches. So yeah, that makes sense. And luckily there are a lot of good interior offensive linemen coming up in the free agency. Like even guys like Pittsburgh's James Daniels is likely to hit free agency.
Yep.
We got Brandon Sheriff likely hitting free agency. So there are going to be other options outside those guys if you're not able to land them, that you're still going to be able to improve
Yep.
this interior offensive line. So,
Hell, Zach Martin is going to be a free agent this year, and
yep.
yeah, he's 35 years old, but he's 9 Pro Bowls in 11 seasons in the NFL. He's a surefire Hall of Famer. He's
Mhm.
probably the greatest offensive guard that has ever lived or ever played the game. If you want to bring that guy in for a season, I don't think you're going to be too upset. Mekhi Becton, he
Nope.
played guard for the Eagles this year. That's another
Yep.
guy. Like, Will Fries, Tevin Jenkins, I don't think is returning to the Bears, but there's a lot of guard help this year in a year where I think most teams are looking at it going, we need to improve our guards.
Yeah.
And so those are the 3 guys that ultimately we think our teams should try to pursue.